The Dog and Deuce Show is produced by Dymar Productions in association with Studio B Productions.
Still quarantined in a secret bunker somewhere in Salt Lake City, this is Dog and Deuce. The Jazz have won 6 in a row. Larry Scott's reign of terror is over, and Kyrie Irving finally shows up. Plus, the NFL divisional round was wild. We'll preview the NFC and AFC championship games. We've got all that and a whole lot more coming your way on Dog and Deuce number 353.
From Studio B in Salt Lake City, this is Dog and Deuce. Join the conversation at doganddeuce.com or send an email to doganddeuce@gmail.com.
Thank you for listening to episode 353 of the Dog and Deuce Show. If you want to know more, and I sure hope you do, follow along with the show notes at doganddeuce.com.
Watch the show all weekend long on K-Patter TV or Backcountry TV, or listen wherever you get your favorite podcasts. We would love to hear from you. Send us an email to doganddeuce@gmail.com. I'm Dog.
I'm Deuce.
And this is episode 353 of Dog and Deuce. Welcome to the show. New music. Admittedly, not as good. I'll admit that. It doesn't really fit the energy of the show. But, in the new year, I've decided that we're going to make a push on YouTube. We're going to finally kind of get that going a little bit. And every time I would upload the show to YouTube, our old intro and our old outro would get copyright claimed or whatever they call it on YouTube. So we had to change it up. It's still a work in progress, but what were your thoughts?
I like it. Works for me.
It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit right. Maybe I'm just too used to the old song.
Ritual. We probably need to do it more often. It's too much ritual. I mean, after that many years, it does throw you off a bit.
It does. There's also maybe next week, if I remember, there's another one that I'm. You don't hear it because we don't play the outro music live while we're recording. I put that in post, but I've switched the outro music to more like a funky hip hop type thing. So maybe I'll throw that in the intro and see if that works. I don't know. Just not the same energy, man. Just not the same energy. That old song worked well. Lots of changes this year. We got a new president, dude.
Lord willing, lots of changes.
Crazy. And Kyrie Irving is back with his team. He showed up. He decided to show up. What else? The Jazz have won 6 in a row. 6 in a row, man. Now I already know where you're going to go with this.
Uh-oh.
Am I wrong? Sure? I know exactly where you're going to go.
You start then.
All right. Here's my James, my poor, horrible James impression. Jazz fans, don't get too excited. Don't get too excited. And then you're going to talk about the teams they've beaten. Am I right?
I mean, a little bit, but I will say, like, it doesn't matter what team you are, right? In the NBA in 2020 to 21 season, really in any season ever, winning 6 games in a row is hard. And so we should applaud that accomplishment. Some of the victories are against teams who leave a lot to be desired, aren't a true test necessarily, when you talk about the Pistons and the Cavs. But then there's a Milwaukee in there.
Denver
lost to the Nets really to start it, right? Or the Knicks, pardon me, to start it, and then the victories after that. One thing I will say, and I'm sure you were going to hit on this, is not that Donovan Mitchell isn't playing well. He is. He's playing, up to a high level, but it feels like there's more. I can't really put into words what I feel like I'm missing from him. But at times, and it's not that he's not trying, it's just not there yet for him. Thankfully for the Jazz, the other players, whether it be Jordan Clarkson or Rudy Gobert for the most part, Mike Conley, and others, have really contributed in a way that have made this winning streak be allowed, right? I think for me, when you look at the Pelican game, the last game that was played with the Pelicans, we have another tilt with them tomorrow. It didn't feel like the Jazz were playing their best, yet they were beating them.
Yeah.
pretty substantially, like it was kind of weird. Granted, it was like what, a 6-point game at halftime, if I remember correctly, but it didn't feel, and the Pelicans, I think, are a pretty good team, but it didn't feel like they were even close to their best, especially with turnovers, etc. And I think you could even throw the Denver game into that sort of pot, if you will, where it wasn't their best, but it was enough to get a victory against a really good team.
Yeah. I agree with everything you said. Let's see, that road trip started off with, it did start off with the Nets, and they lost that game, and they probably shouldn't have, because there was no Kevin Durant, and this is before James Harden, so you're basically playing Kyrie Irving, but the speed really got to the Jazz, really bothered them. We've talked about that game. Then they lost to the Knicks. That's a bad loss. That's, any way you spin it, that's a bad loss. Then they come back, they beat the Bucks. They beat the Pistons, they beat the Cavs, Wizards postponed, they beat the Hawks, which I honestly, the Hawks, I think, are a better team than a lot of people would give them credit for. They're 7-7 right now in the Eastern Conference, but that's going to be a tough team. There's something about them that really I'm getting a little excited about. And then they beat the Nuggets, and again, the Nuggets are 7-7, and they're not playing they're not playing to the level we would expect them to be playing. And I imagine later on in the season they're going to be playing at a higher level. But still, that's a very good win on the road against a team that embarrassed you in the playoffs. I mean, it was a hell of a series. Outstanding, but you can't be up 3-1 and then lose the series. That's embarrassing. So, and Donovan Mitchell did not play well in that game. He kind of came alive in the third quarter, but he played really bad, and they still managed to win. And which brings me back to what you said. Donovan Mitchell, like he's not out there scoring 35 points a game. He's doing what the Jazz need him to do, though. And that, to me, that's what I'm most excited about. Because that pass to Bojan Bogdanovic when he was going out of bounds, in recent years, he would have tried to go up, even though he's very well defended. Also, he had Clarkson on the wing there, and he was well defended. In fact, the whole Pelicans team thought he was going to pass it to Clarkson, but instead he kicks it out. I mean, he's making intelligent plays, and he doesn't need to be putting up 40 a game. He's doing what the Jazz need him to do, and to me, that's very exciting. I've seen some criticism about Bojan, though, and I'm a little perplexed by that, because I think he's doing exactly what the Jazz need him to do. I'm more worried about when the schedule toughens up a little bit. I think that's when we could see some trouble. On this homestand, they had the Pelicans again. They got the Warriors. They got another crack at the Knicks, and then they got 2 against the Mavericks. So this is a tough stretch. And then they're going to go on the road against Denver to follow that up. So this is going to be a tough stretch, and we're really going to see what this team is made of. I don't know. I guess I'm the one right now saying, Jazz fans, like I see a lot of people getting excited, and I love it. And I've been there with you. I'm super excited. It's awesome to win 6 in a row. It's hard to do in the NBA, but let's pump the brakes a little bit. I know they're in second place. They're right behind the Lakers, a half game behind the Lakers. It feels really good, but let's pump the brakes a little bit and see what they can do. If they can keep this up against the Warriors and the Mavs and the Nuggets, and they keep it going, then I'm all in. But I'm not quite there yet. I've seen this story too many times. Usually, but it's this time of the season, though, where the Jazz are struggling. And then later they turn it on because they get a lull in the schedule. It's kind of flipped a little bit right now.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Look, and I agree wholeheartedly, right? These wins are awesome, and they're important, and they're in second place now. But it's January 20th, right? And they've played, 15 games? Something like that. 14 games. And the Clippers and the Lakers are ahead of them. It is ironic. If you look at the Lakers, they're 7-0 on the road. If you look at the Jazz, they're 7-2 at home. Or 7-2 on the road, 3-2 at home. And the Lakers are only 4-4. It's very interesting how, if you look at the whole league, the road seems to be where people are making hay, and home seems to be not, which is obviously a complete shift from how we viewed, right, sports in general. Now, some of that may be the crowd, obviously, right? Some of it may be that you're playing these teams closer together than you might otherwise. And so the familiarity of, the schedule allows for a road game not to feel that way without a crowd. I mean, I think at home, the Jazz are definitely missing their crowd and sort of profiting, if you will, from not having crowds on the road. I am worried a little bit about their rebounding, right? We've talked about it before. When you shoot threes like this and you only have one big at a time, it's really incumbent upon, Boyan, Donovan, Conley, Ingles, Clarkson, the other guys to make sure we secure the rebound. You can't just assume Rudy's going to get every rebound. And you've seen that come back to bite him. Maybe not definitely not in losses over the last 6 games, but I think with the Knicks that played a role, and it made these games closer than even some of them should have been, and put them in peril, right? But to get to your point about Donovan, I think now you're really seeing the type of influence Mike Conley can have on Donovan.
Absolutely.
That situation you described, in my opinion, demonstrates that maybe it took a year and a half for him to, gather or really understand what Mike Conley was saying, but it's finally set in. And not to mention that Mike Conley, since the bubble to today, January 2021, has been playing out of his mind. It was the Mike Conley we all hoped for. And if I remember correctly, I think we were, sort of shocked that he didn't manage to come in and be the Mike Conley we all know had come in to expect, but we're willing to give him time. And now that time has elapsed and we're seeing what he can do with this group of players and in the system that Quinn Snyder's put together for this group of players. And it's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on what you said about rebounding. In the Nuggets game, it almost cost them the game. Jazz gave up 23 offensive rebounds. 23. And you have Rudy Gobert and Derek Favors. That's just out hustled at that point. That's all that is. And you just can't allow that. They're very fortunate they won that game. I mean, if they didn't have that lockdown defense on Jamal Murray in the third quarter, the Jazz aren't winning that game. There's just no way.
And Jamal struggled for most of that game.
He went off in the first half, but then the third quarter, they locked down. I think they shut him out in the third quarter, if I'm not mistaken.
Man, have they put? I thought it was he struggled in the first half and came alive in the second.
It could be.
Don't trust my memory anymore.
Yeah,
Once upon a time, I'd say test it. Now it's no good.
I remember we've interviewed David Locke a couple times, and he said something that made me feel so good. One time, I think it was actually after the interview, he said that he doesn't remember games 2 games ago. He doesn't remember what happened 2 games ago, and that made me feel so much better because I can't remember what happened in the last game, man. Like my brain is going fast. So if the best of the best is struggling, then I feel like it's okay that we can struggle too. So yeah, dude, like we got to get the offensive rebounds taken care, or the defensive rebounds taken care of. I think you're going to see that though. This is weird, man. So I've been kind of following Jazz Twitter a little bit, and there are some people who follow the opposing team game threads. Pelican fans hate Derek Favors, hate him. And I'm like, dude, how is it possible? Of all the players in the NBA, how is it possible to hate Derek Favors, the most likable guy in the league? I don't get it.
Well, I mean, it's because of where he went.
Well, I understand.
Be aware, like New Orleans Pelicans fans and New Orleans people in general. I've worn a Jazz shirt in New Orleans, a Utah Jazz shirt, and that wouldn't recommend it unless you're willing. I mean, granted, I wasn't sober after 7:00, but I mean, you have to be because they are really got their hide chapped. And let's be honest, I mean, although the Pelicans, they're playing better of late, even though they lost to the Jazz, he would make being a substantial impact on that team. They're all very young, right? And I mean, they lost Holiday and they lose Favors. So they feel small, and he would be having a significant impact. I mean, it's a formidable lineup with him and Zion right next to each other. But still, that's stupid. He was he was free to go. You're in the right, et cetera, et cetera. But it doesn't surprise me, needless to say.
I think the major thing that I was reading was I think he was hurting last year. Like I think he was really struggling with that back injury. And so maybe, I don't know, I didn't really watch a lot of Pelicans games, but maybe he just didn't play to the potential they wanted him to. And so they're pissed about that. I don't know what it is. But of all the people in the NBA, and there are many to dislike, I don't know how anyone can dislike Derek Favors. Just the nicest.
It's unusual, that's for sure. That's an unusual. If you're gonna get on someone, it shouldn't be Derek Favors. There's plenty of other people.
Very strange.
Yeah.
But I'm going to say this, so I will never, ever get tired of seeing him in a Jazz uniform now. Every time he comes in the game, I am just smiling ear to ear. Like, that'll never get old. He could just be the worst player. He could just tank and just be awful, and I'm still going to be proud to have him on our team. I just love the guy. It wasn't the same without him, and it feels great to have him back. I'm not going to get tired of it.
Right, and he's such a professional. Recognize the guy was like the third pick and he's playing 15 minutes a game and doing his job fairly well, but it's hard to fully appreciate how someone drafted that high would be willing to take that role.
Right.
In Utah,
right.
That's a pretty special person, it's not like he's on the Lakers, almost guaranteed a deep playoff run. Like he wanted to be here for obvious reasons, the franchise, the players, the way he was treated. So I take that as sort of Salt Lake rebuilding our reputation around the league as a place people want to go. At least once they get here, they often want to return.
That's true. That's very true. Okay, let's just run through these next couple games until we record next week. We'll go right up until Wednesday because the Jazz will probably be playing while we're recording or finishing up while we're recording. The second game against the Pelicans. It's always tougher to get that second win when you're playing a team back-to-back. Who you got in that one?
Well, look, it was a 16-point victory last night. And the Pelicans, I think, are going to come back. Here's what I'll say. I think the Jazz are going to go over the 3-game stretch until we record next week, 2-1.
Okay.
I don't know if you had the opportunity to watch that Golden State game, Laker game last night.
I didn't, because I didn't think it was going to be close, and then I hear it was just insane.
It was, and there's no reason Golden State should have won that game, but they did. So they're formidable. The Knicks, I think they'll crush because they're going to be angry, right? Of the loss at MSG. So the real game is, what do I think is going to happen in the Pelicans game? Like you said, it's really hard to win back-to-back. And I think they're going 2-1, which means they'd have to win. The Pelicans and the Knicks would be my choices, but the back-to-back sort of has me stumbling with my belief. I'm going to stick 2-1. Win versus Pelicans, win versus Knicks, loss to the Warriors. I told you, at the beginning of the year, everyone said the Warriors aren't going to make the playoffs. They're right in the thick of it. Steve Kerr's earning his money this year.
He definitely is. What about that first Dallas Mavericks game at home on Wednesday?
On the 27th?
Yeah.
Dude, the Mavs are another team who have come out flat. Luka got married. Looks like he packed on a little marriage weight. I totally understand.
He's still outstanding, though. Like, he is, like,
amazing.
I watch him, and I'm like, dude, that's... You remember Rick Carlisle a couple years ago said about the Jazz, that's the future of the NBA? Well, now I'm looking at Luka, and I'm like, that's the future of the NBA. Like, he's going to win some titles, I think.
I mean, at least MVPs. He was the preeminent favorite, according to Caesar's book at the beginning of the year, to be the MVP this year. I'll take the Jazz in that and have them go 3-1.
Okay.
Maybe on the next Friday night game. Not so much.
I am like, wow, James, this is progress, because in years past, I'm not sure you would have given them a 3-1 record in the next 4 with these teams.
I mean, truly, that's probably accurate, but they're playing really well.
They are,
right?
They are,
and they're overcoming their mistakes. So I got to figure somewhere along the way in the next little while, those mistakes won't be so obvious, whether it's rebounding, a lack of defense early on, free throw missing, shooting too many threes, although that's our strategy now. I'm going 3-1. 3-1. We'll see.
They are playing really well, But like you said, and maybe I misunderstood you, but it feels like they're not even clicking on all cylinders yet. It feels like they're still not holding back, but it feels like we haven't even seen the full potential yet. And they're still playing exceptionally.
I totally agree with that. I mean, and when I was talking about Donovan, it's just that next level. It's there. He's doing all the right things. It just feels like he's struggling a little bit with his shot, which when that comes around, and if Ingles picks up his play, and even Derek Favors to a certain extent, right? There's room for improvement. The one person who we have to point out for the Jazz, though, is Jordan Clarkson.
Oh,
not only is he just instant offense off the bench, and he's in the running, granted, again, only 14 games into the season, I understand. I mean, he's definitely in the running for Sixth Player of the Year, if he's even in the ballpark of what his current statistics are. But it's not just the offense. We've come to know and appreciate and love Jordan Clarkson for his willingness to understand that there is no shot he doesn't like, right?
Right.
That's
right.
a Jordan Clarkson thing definitively. But also I've seen progress on the defensive end and a little more aggression and not just sort of cavalierly allowing his assignment to go wherever he wants, which tells me not only is Jordan Clarkson firing on all cylinders, he's committed to a certain identity that this team has, and he recognizes if he commits to that identity, no one will complain if he shoots 15 times a game in 20 minutes.
He is, what like he'll go through these mini slumps where he'll miss a couple in a row. And I think last year I would have been like, oh God, it's the wheels are coming off. But now I'm not even worried. I'm not worried at all because he's going to drive. He's going to get a close little floater. He's going to get a layup. He's going to do something to contribute. And then, like you said, defensively, he is playing better than I've ever seen him play defensively. Now, I didn't watch a ton of Jordan Clarkson before he came to the Jazz, but I did watch him with the Lakers. I did watch him with the Pelicans. Not the Pelicans, the Cavs. And he never struck me as a defensive player. So to see him buying into the system is great. Also to have, we've said this again, and it just, one more time, I want to reiterate how much I am so happy that Jordan Clarkson decided to extend his contract and re-sign here. Like, it makes me, like, it was such a relief when we got him to come back. So he's just contributing in ways that I didn't think he would ever contribute. I thought he'd be one of those guys. We needed more off the bench, and I thought he'd be a good, solid bench guy to get us some points. But he is becoming vital to the Jazz success. Absolutely vital. The minivan's playing pretty damn well too.
He is. He's come alive. He struggled quite a bit early on, but he's showing signs. And just real quick before I hit on Niang, here's the thing about Jordan Clarkson. When I look at who he's played with and who have accepted him, whether it's Kobe Bean Bryant or LeBron James, I'm just assuming that they know basketball better than me because they do.
Yep.
Right? And if they see something in him and they wanted him on their squad, then it's there. And it's sort of him just sort of being able, in my opinion, to kind of get out of those shadows on a team. The most beautiful thing about the Jazz, there's definitely a pecking order, right? Whether it's Donovan, Rudy, Donovan, and then throughout. But it doesn't feel that way. It's
right.
definitive.
Right.
It's de facto Donovan and Rudy or Donovan's team. But they're all willing to make the necessary sacrifices to get a W on any given night. And I think that's freed Jordan up to be Jordan Clarkson. And
Absolutely.
It looks beautiful.
Absolutely. You're right. The pecking order is the lines are blurred. George Niang is big time in Donovan Mitchell all the time. Yeah. He's big time in him consistently. He's not returning the high fives, man. What are you doing? That's a team leader.
Yeah.
And I do want to give one more shout out to Royce O'Neal, who I think defensively, again, he'll have like one poor defensive sequence and people are ready to just jump all over him. To me, his defense is what keeps him out there. Offensively, he's great. He can nail some threes and he can do some stuff, but the defense, that's where his bread and butter is, man. Sometimes I will see some guys, and a lot of the time he just kind of has rotten luck where he will defend a guy stellarly, and the guy will just make it a crazy shot. And so I think that kind of counts against him. And I've seen Jazz fans kind of turn on him. But, man, I just – Royce's defense is really – every time he plays, I'm impressed by it.
Yeah, I mean, he's a defender. That's what he's out there for, defender in threes. And at times he has struggled. But I agree with you. Like, this is where, harken back to the beginning of the show, Jazz fans bug the crap out of me. Like, look, every person, like, who's the best defender ever, like, in your lifetime? I mean – I can think of a few, but I know they've all been beaten. Whether it's Bruce Bowen or
Ron Artest,
Ben Wallace.
Ben Wallace.
You know, I mean, Yao Ming. You know, I mean, Yao Ming struggled to guard Carlos Boozer. Carlos Boozer was dropping fadeaway jumpers out of the post on him in the playoffs, and he couldn't do anything about it. And he was 10 inches taller than the dude.
Yep, that's true.
You know, like, so I mean. Relax. Everyone loses a battle in a game. Like, it doesn't mean that he's not trying, that he's struggling. I do worry, though, and here's one thing we need to pay attention to as the season progresses. Some of the teams that we've beaten, the Jazz have beaten on this road trip, we match up with very well, right?
True.
Like, you know, like the Hawks, they're not going to overwhelm you with size at any position, really, you know? But speed is their modus operandi, and the Jazz are plenty quick, right? But when you get some bigger wing players, I mean, if you think like, for example, the Lakers or the Clippers, they're going to have some big guys who I'm not sure how we match up with. You know, if you think of a lineup like Kuzma, LeBron, AD,
well, the Lakers, that's a whole – I don't think anyone's going to match up with them. I mean, that's just a whole
even
other story.
The Clippers, even, I mean, and I'm just thinking –
well, the Clippers, that's easy. That's simple. All you do is you put Joe Ingles on Paul George and watch the meltdown begin.
That's true. That's true. Just some of the wing players who are taller, I'm not sure. It's not that Royce can't defend. It's that Royce will get tired defending.
I agree.
So who's going to sub for him,
I
right?
agree.
And fill that void. Something to watch for. I don't know. But overall, if you're a Jazz fan and you're if you're like, look, it's like they have to look to complain.
Yeah. Well, and I also, and again, I want to be a cautious optimist here. I've seen a lot of people being like, this team is, I can finally say this team is great. And I really want to believe you. But I got to see it against better competition consistently. And then I'm with you because they are playing outstanding, but we have seen the Jazz do this against bad competition in the past. I just want to, let's just give me a little bit more time. Give me another 2 weeks and then I'll be with you.
And they've made runs like this. Look, the Jazz are this, as the team is currently construed, the Jazz have one objective, right? And that's deep playoff runs. Like, and without the, of course, like if everyone gets injured, they're going to struggle. But as currently construed and healthy, minus a few stints here or there for some of the major players, like the Jazz really now we're focusing on how can we get to the second and the semis and the conference finals. And whether you like it or not, Jazz fans, this team may be great, but it's really hard for me to get about something you spoke on earlier, being up 3-1.
Yeah,
right?
That's hard. That's a tough one.
Like until we see that sort of killer instinct, if they're in that position again in the playoffs, I won't really know because I've seen all this before. This is the same story. It's the same season, different situation, obviously, because of COVID. But really, these ups and downs, 10, 12-game winning streaks, 6-game winning streaks so far this year are kind of the norm. It's how do they respond when the first loss comes? Does that turn into 3? And then they get back on winning and what they do in the playoffs. But so far, the season's been a blast to watch, right?
Yeah, dude. I'm loving it.
Complaints.
I'm loving it. Despite 2 bad losses in a row, I think it's been outstanding so far. It's been a lot of fun. While we're on the NBA, let's just talk a little bit real quick. Kyrie Irving decided to show up and play a game today against the Cavs and lost in double overtime. So this is the first time we've seen the three-headed beast. I have not got to see. I saw some highlights. I don't think it was on national TV, so I didn't get to see the whole thing. It's too early. Okay, I want to preface what I'm about to say with this. It's too early to tell whether it's going to work or not. This is the first game they've had together, but it was fun to see them lose. It was a lot of fun to see them lose to the Cavs, no less.
Well, I was watching ESPN and Steve, and they were talking about why Kyrie. They didn't know if he was going to play tonight, but he's been practicing for the last week or something, and they wanted to get his legs under him. And I have to say right here, I personally feel like the Brooklyn Nets, Steve Nash, their PR team, threw Kyrie under the bus. If you're really concerned about his legs getting under him after a week off, and as long as he's passing COVID protocol, obviously, you play him for 10 minutes a game.
Yeah, I agree.
You play him for 15 minutes a game. Like, he's Kyrie Irving. You take him in and out. He knows his body better than Steve Nash. And maybe Kyrie was telling him this, but it felt like the whole narrative was assuring that unless they come out on a massive win streak, especially given what Harden and KD did together before Kyrie entered the lineup, that Kyrie was always going to be the one who gets the blame. And I'm not sure if that's a good strategy, not only for this team, but from a possible trade perspective, right? There's one thing that everyone who watches the NBA knows. Kyrie is a baller, right? But your main concern is that, and look, I also want to say right here, it's been reported that he bought a house for George Floyd's family. He's doing lots of good charity work. All that I support, and I'm proud of Kyrie. And that's what any man, should do when they have the resources, the name recognition, and the ability to get it done. I believe that's your responsibility when you're put in a position of great wealth and responsibility. But having said that, you also have a job. And if you want your job to be charity, then that's fine. Retire from the NBA. But you do need to be a professional. And while I applaud all his off the court work, and it's imperative work and needs to be done, that can't distract you from the reason you're able to do all that off the court work.
Right.
But I feel like the Nets are just feeding that narrative, and it's sort of weird. And now I'm defending flat earther Kyrie Irving, which is a place I never thought I'd be.
I know.
But I am, because I feel like the Nets threw him under the bus.
Weird time. I mean, I agree with you. I follow the logic, but he also just disappeared. So a lot of this is on him. You just can't. I mean, like you said, this is your job. This is what you do. Lots of guys would like to take some time off too, but they don't do it because they're professionals and they go out there and they play. So now you got Kyrie Irving, who has acted unprofessionally, although, albeit he's done some great things, some admirable things. That doesn't excuse that he's been unprofessional. And you've got James Harden, who's acted incredibly unprofessional in recent weeks. And they're on the same team. It was very interesting, I will say, to see James Harden. He's passing the ball, dude. It's weird. It's so weird to see him pass the ball. He passed the game-winning shot over to Kyrie. Then in overtime, he passed a game-winning shot to Durant. So it's just strange, and I wonder how long he can keep doing that, because maybe he just doesn't like that load of just having to dribble, shoot. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, even in Houston, he got a lot of assists, right? They just weren't necessarily in the framework of an offense. I mean, he's not. Well, I'm just.
I know,
not an unwilling passer.
I know what you're saying, but it just sounded funny because that
he's
describes.
Not an unwilling passer. It's just more of 3 seconds left. I can't do anything. You
exactly.
Type scenario.
Yeah, exactly.
But as he's arrived in Brooklyn, I mean, I just look at the stats tonight, and if I told you this stat line, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, and 37 points, 99% of the people would assume that that's James Harden, when in fact, that's Kyrie Irving. And then if I tell you, 10 rebounds, 12 assists, and 21 points, you're going to tell me that's probably Kevin Durant.
Yep.
And then if I tell you 12 rebounds, 8 assists, and 38 points, you're probably going to guess Harden. And no, that's Durant. So Harden really is putting in, at least through the first 4 or 5 games, the effort to try to make it work. I'm just not sure if, look, I don't care that you made a comeback. You still lost to the Cavaliers.
Yeah, it's...
I mean, it's the Cavs, dude. And you had to go to double overtime.
Double OT.
I mean, well, I'm not going to say it's over right away. Leads me to believe that. When is the trade deadline in the NBA?
I don't know where it is this
on
year.
The block.
He might be, but I'll tell you what, The Cavs aren't even close without Colin Sexton. Dude hit 20 points in a row for the Cavs. I mean, they're nothing without him, and certainly weren't tonight. So that, I mean, say what you will, really, Colin Sexton beat them. That's what happened. Running a little short on time. It's tick-tocking away. So let's move on to Larry Scott. His reign of terror is coming to an end this June, which is great. I just wonder how the hell has he had his job for so long? He's got to be the worst commissioner in all of college sports, right?
Whew, he's pretty bad.
He's awful.
He's pretty bad.
I will always be thankful that because he brought Utah into the Pac-12. Without him, Utah's not getting in. So I don't want to rip him apart too much, but that's about the only thing I've been happy with him over.
I mean, look, I'm with you. Like, forever grateful because now the Utah's in the Pac-12, right? And without Larry Scott, I'm not sure that happens. Always frustrated because he couldn't. I mean, there's only one thing you need to know about sports if you're in upper management or executive. All that matters right now, if you're in that position, is TV deals. And he failed. He didn't get the Pac-12 on all the major outlets, and it's hurt the Pac-12.
And that's why he's out, I think.
I totally agree. But the question I have for you is, has he hurt the Pac-12? Because, I mean, everyone says, oh, we don't get seen. Well, guess what? When Oregon got to the college football playoff, when Washington went back-to-back, they got slaughtered.
Yeah.
Slaughtered. So we can blame a lot on Larry Scott, and rightfully so. That's your job as the commissioner. But let's be honest, at least from a football and basketball perspective, the teams in the Pac-12 haven't really been anything special and haven't been able to perform on a level when it mattered that would give Larry Scott any leverage to push a direct TV network through.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think he shoulders too much of the blame. Doesn't mean he's blameless and doesn't mean he's not awful, but I agree. There's some things he can't control. He can't control that every single team in the Pac-12 underperforms on the national stage. He can't every single time without fail.
Even Utah. We lost to Texas last year in the bowl game.
Exactly. He can't control that. I understand that. There are some things he can't control. Like I understand it's tougher when you're out west and you have weird scheduling, and I get that. It's harder to get in front of national audiences. I think they tried to do some stuff, and I'm not sure it's how well it's working, but I think, he's doing what he can. But man, there's some things that are just so bad. I mean, the whole Office in San Francisco thing alone should be grounds for him to be removed. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And obviously, all of the officiating problems, which are rampant in all the sports that as far as I can tell, fall on his shoulders. There's so much to go down the list. I mean, there have been exposés written about Larry Scott and how awful he is. So I think this is a good thing. I really, really do. I'm not sad to see him go. Good riddance.
Look, I mean, I never call for anyone to get fired because that's his livelihood, but he's made a boatload of cash. And you're right. Like, the thing that Larry Scott did, or at least he came across as when he first took the job, was that we are going to be the premier conference. He set the bar a little too high.
Sure.
And look, we've been in the Pac-12 now 10 years. We all know, as Ute fans who are in other conferences, the people at some of the other schools in the Pac-12, the Conference of Champion slogan, in a way, really hurts the Pac-12.
Yeah, I'd say.
Because they are, in fact, it is true, but it's not in the ones, at least over the last 20 years, that really get the conference over the finish line to have that leverage. So, yes, dude, the Office in San Francisco is freaking absurd. Him getting the penthouse during the basketball tournament at the MGM or wherever is not only is it absurd, it's just a bad business move.
Right.
Like, when you're hemorrhaging money, you can't keep spending $20 million on an office. And it looks bad when you're letting go Mike Yam, who's beloved, among others, from the Pac-12 network, but you're sitting in a cush office in San Francisco. That's when you move to freaking San Jose and pay a quarter of the thing and make it work.
Exactly.
So his mistakes are obvious, and you're right. Look, I won't be sad to see him go. I think he shoulders too much of the blame, as you eloquently noted. But who do they get?
I don't know.
I don't know how I don't know how you go about selecting a commissioner.
I don't know.
That's a heavy task.
That's going to be a tough one. Watch, they'll get Craig Thompson.
That would be the funniest. I would laugh so.
Seriously, watch it. Watch it.
Oh my God. Might have a heart attack if that happened. That would be kind of funny, dude.
It'd be hilarious for about 5 minutes. And then that's awful. So there we go. Goodbye, Larry Scott. June can't come soon enough. I gotta think whoever they find will do a better job. I gotta think. I don't know, because they're gonna have priorities that they're gonna need this person to do. Negotiate a better TV deal, which is top of the list, and then we'll go from there. Okay, should we move on to football?
Woo!
We got about 15 minutes. Dude, you swept it last week. You went 4-0.
What'd you go?
2-2.
So we're tied.
We're tied, dude.
Yes.
We are straight up tied right now, going into the conference championships. And this is tough this week for a couple reasons. Obviously, the first game on the docket, Aaron Rodgers against Tom Brady. That's going to be tough. But then you even look at Buffalo and KC. Where do you go? Is Mahomes going to play? I don't know. Like I don't know how you even the people in Vegas having to score this thing. I feel bad for them, and I never feel bad for the people in Vegas because they're raking in the dough. But this is a tough one, man. I don't know how you do this. So let's talk about last week though. It's weird. We were talking about how it's tough to remember even the last game that was played. It feels to me, and maybe it's just because of everything that's gone on in this country the last 2 weeks, but it feels to me like these games were played like 2 weeks ago. Like they were just on Sunday, and I watched them all. I watched every single one, and I don't even remember some of what happened in this, which is crazy. I was reviewing before the show, and I'm like, I don't remember that. Don't remember that. So I don't know, man. To me, football is a great escape, and we need it right now. Hopefully, I can retain some of this information. We both picked Green Bay correctly to beat the Rams. But I mean, Baltimore really let me down. I mean, a 101-yard pick six. It's gonna be tough to beat that.
But remember, that dude went to Weber State.
He did.
And Tyler Huntley got some PT.
He did.
So those are two Utahns or Utah-related players. I mean, dude, I saw some people trying to slander Tyler Huntley. Like, shut the beep up.
What?
Like, dude was on, saying he could have played better. I was like, first of all, dude was on the practice squad like 4 weeks ago. Came in as the backup in a playoff game with 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And in my estimation, performed admirably. Yes, he missed a touchdown pass. But what planet do you live on? Lamar Jackson was missing passes before he got hurt.
Did you hear Al Michaels talk about Tyler Huntley?
Yeah, I was in agreement with Al Michaels.
He said he looks like a 10-year veteran right now.
Yeah.
And he does. But I will say it was really weird seeing him do that wind-up pass and, just as always, staring down the receiver. And I think that was his first or second pass, and he got better as it went on. But that first pass, I was like, oh, man, he's still staring down the receiver like that. That's ugly. We got to move on that. But he looked great, man. I don't know how anyone could be disappointed in his performance. I really don't.
Me neither, but there were.
It takes all kinds. So Baltimore really let me down. I mean, I get it. Lamar Jackson goes down. You're going to make it hard on yourself. But Lamar Jackson wasn't wonderful while he was in either. So I just
Buffalo defense was looking legit last week.
It was. It really was. KC. Okay, this one I turned it off, dude. I was like, I can see the writing on the wall, see where this is going, and then I get a text being like, "Are you watching this game?" And so I turn it back on, and Holy cow, man. The Browns, they almost did it. They almost did it. They should have done it. I couldn't believe it, man. It was that was pretty impressive. Again, Patrick Mahomes goes out. I'm not sure it's the same story, but it was very not Browns-esque to make a comeback like that.
Well, and if you're a Browns fan, you're excited because that's a growing moment, right?
It is.
For that franchise, for Baker Mayfield, for Stefanski coming off a week after COVID. Pretty, if I'm a Browns fan, pretty optimistic if OBJ returns that they could have something special there.
Yeah, I agree. And then we went to the Old Guy Bowl.
Old Guy Bowl.
Tampa Bay and New Orleans, and Tom Brady got the best of old Drew Brees. How long is Drew Brees going to hang on?
I mean, the reports before that game, this was his last game in the Superdome. If it, win, lose, or draw, because they weren't going to be on the road no matter what. And look, Drew Brees has nothing to apologize for with his play on the field.
No,
what he did for that franchise. I mean, look, I remember Aaron Brooks. I remember Kyle Turley throwing helmets when he was a Saint. I remember Mike Ditka trading away, Reggie.
That's right.
Or Ricky, pardon me, Ricky Williams, not Reggie. And then they traded away Reggie too. But he looked like he was in a pinch, and I'm not sure if the ribs were still hurting him or what. But man, that game was there for the taking, and Drew Brees, let's be honest, let his team down.
He did. I wonder, it may be the ribs still hurting. It may honestly be age is catching up to him at the end of a long season. I mean, what Tom Brady, and I'm not a Tom Brady fan, but what he's doing at his age is pretty remarkable. I mean, he's not getting the same protection he got in New England. Like he's getting chased and he's getting hit. And he's still hanging on. Like it's whatever he's drinking, whatever's in those crazy juices that his chef prepares from every day. I want some, man. Give me some of that because he's defying father time right now, which never happens.
I mean, what? He's been to 14 now conference championship games. There's only like 2 or 3 franchises that have been to more than him. One's the Patriots because they went to one before him,
right?
And then it's like the Steelers, and I can't even remember the other team, but he's ahead of the Cowboys, the Packers, not his team, him personally has been to more
Tom
than
Brady.
in the history of their franchise.
It's crazy, man.
It's out of this world, and he looked really good. There were moments where that defense had him shaky, and unfortunately, the Cook turnover and Drew Brees, not being able to throw the ball more than 20 yards certainly benefited that Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, especially in the second half. But yeah, you're right. I mean, Tom Brady, like I once upon a time, 10 years ago, or probably 6 years ago, would have argued that he still wasn't the GOAT. And now it's without a doubt.
Yeah. I don't know how you can argue it at all. That defense really came through, man. They really did too, forcing all those turnovers. And now they're gonna play Green Bay, and this is kind of a rivalry I wish would have been brewing over the years, but since they're in different conferences for so long, it wasn't. But Aaron Rodgers, it's just surprising to me that he only has one Super Bowl because every year he's so good and every year he brings it, and they just always they fall flat, kind of whether it's in the championship game or the divisional round or whatever. They just find a way to lose, and so I'm hoping that that we're gonna see. I feel like Aaron Rodgers is more focused than I've ever seen him. Even when he won the Super Bowl, it feels like he's playing on a different level right now.
Yeah, it feels like he has. What was that thing like that? Was it called Qualm in Jerry Maguire? I need the qualm, Jerry. Isn't that what he said?
I don't know. It's been a minute since I've seen that.
Come on, man. We gotta go back and watch Jerry Maguire this weekend. It's very heartwarming.
It is.
Or the Zen. Like he just feels like the whole year he's been in his zone, been uber focused. Look, we all criticized, them for picking Jordan Love and not giving him another weapon. Who knows what they would be if they didn't use that draft pick on Jordan Love. But one thing we do know as at least from the outside looking in, it clearly motivated Aaron Rodgers in a way that you could only hope would transpire. I don't think you could have hoped for this good of an Aaron Rodgers, and that's saying something. Having said that, I mean, look, these two teams met on October 10th, and it didn't turn out well. Granted, that was a couple game losing streak, and I don't think Devontae Adams played. But the Packers got beat 38-10 just a few months ago, and Tampa Bay seems to be peaking, as is Green Bay. The question is, look, they're letting fans into Lambeau. It's snow is expected. Now, that might not affect Tom Brady because he's used to that being, most of his career in New England. But does it affect Mike Evans?
I mean, the rest of the guys are used to playing in Tampa Bay, like Tom Brady's used to it. It's not going to bother him. But yeah, they're playing in Florida most of the time.
Right. So him, Gronk, and Antonio Brown from his days in Pittsburgh probably can handle it. Some of the others, I don't know, and I mean, they're professionals. They'll have all the luxuries they can. Having said that, I mean, if you look just, from a statistical narrative, Green Bay is ahead in offense, behind in defense, and ahead in rushing. Even though Tampa Bay looked pretty good running the ball in the second half last week versus the Saints, I'm not sure that's really who they want to be.
I agree.
Right? And so it will be interesting to see. And I've always maintained this whole year that the defense was the question mark for me for Green Bay.
Agreed. 100%.
And they've come alive. Who you got, man? What do you tell me?
I'm going Green Bay, man. But the more we're discussing this, the more I want to change my pick. I'm not going to because I actually, at the beginning of the year, I had Green Bay as NFC champions. So, but I'm going to stick with them. This game is the game of the week. I cannot wait for this one to kick off.
I'm with you. It's the one I'm most excited to watch. And also, here's the thing. Here's the best thing about Tom Brady. Look, the Super Bowl rings are awesome. The conference championships are awesome, right? But for me, when I think of Tom Brady, I think of him going up. It doesn't matter who it is, and I don't know his record, but Peyton Manning comes to mind immediately. When it's Tom Brady versus another really good opponent, it seems like his desire to win just supersedes everything.
I know.
He beats all the great quarterbacks, even when his team sucks, because he just can't let that happen for some reason.
I know.
I mean, initially, like you, I'm thinking Green Bay, and for me, it's mostly the weather.
Same, and it's at Lambeau. That's why I'm picking them.
Yeah, so I'm going to go with Green Bay, but I'm excited to watch it, and I would not be the least bit surprised if Tampa Bay walks in and crushes them.
Same. 4 minutes left, so we got to blow through this last one. Buffalo, KC. Again, is Patty Mahomes going to be playing? Is he going to be playing?
Because Kingdom hopes so, that's for sure. And all reports are it's heading that way. They said it's been a head injury, it's been a foot injury, it's been a neck injury. Look, I think if he's 60%, he's going to at least try.
I agree.
But that's not my real concern. I mean, the question is, granted, the defense made a couple big stops. Dan Sorensen's hit to stop Higgins from getting in the end zone in the Cleveland game was as much a Higgins error as it was a great play by Daniel Sorensen. Or not, is it Dirty Dan? Yeah, Dirty Dan Sorensen. I worry about the Chiefs because the Bills are just throttling everyone.
The Chiefs always keep it close. That's the thing. They never cover. They always keep it close, just to make it interesting. I don't know.
I mean, tell me how it feels being a Vikings fan when you see Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, it sucks. I don't want to. That's why I'm. That's not the sole reason, but that's partly why I'm not picking the Bills because It really the whole game. I'm just like, never should have let him go. Never should have let him go. It hurts me. It hurts.
It does. And it's at home. Look, I think this is a closer game because of Pat Mahomes' injury. It will impact him in some way.
Absolutely.
Can't go against the Chiefs. I mean, they're 14-2.
Yeah, I don't think you can because even if Pat Mahomes is out there, like you said, it's going to affect him. It absolutely will. Honestly, no 20-something is ever going to listen to us old guys, but Brett Favre was onto something. I don't know if you heard his comments, but he said that Mahomes has got to be smart about this. And he said, when you're that young, you feel like you're invincible, and it's absolutely true. But from what Favre said, he's struggling these days because of all the hits to the head and all the concussions he played through and everything he's dealt with. He's struggling now. And so to me, they've already got one Super Bowl. Like, I'm not saying phone it in and don't play, but I'm just saying, why not prolong your career a little bit longer? Why risk it? You got your Super Bowl. Come back next year, redeem yourself. Like, to me, if it's even up in the air, I would love to just tell him, don't do it, man. It's not worth it in the long run. But then again, I'm not playing in the AFC Championship game. I'm not Patrick Mahomes, and so I'll never have to deal with that.
Yeah, but it does bring up, and I totally agree, right? Like, you don't give up today for the next 10 years.
Right.
I mean, that's something you try to teach your kids, and that's something I try to live by. But, I mean, here's the thing. You also, look, there's good teams. The Bills aren't going away, unless something dramatic happens. Neither are the Ravens, neither are Cleveland. And let's not forget the classic example is Marino getting there in 83 and never getting back.
True.
So, again, and Pat Mahomes is like, what, 28? He's not like, even if he is thinking about that, I don't know how that couldn't seep in. And unless there's significant injury, I got to imagine he's going to give it a go.
I think so, too.
I hadn't heard those comments, but I totally appreciate Brett Favre throwing it out there and being a leader for the younger generation. Like, that's an important point to make.
It was smart. It was honestly, anytime Brett Favre opens his mouth, you never know what you're going to get. It was one of the times where I was like, that's actual wisdom that he's sharing. And I think he should definitely, I'm sure Pat Mahomes is listening. I mean, he's Brett Favre, of course he's listening to him, but still, you got to be careful, man. Like you said, never trade today for tomorrow, or whatever you said. You said it much better than I did. I think it's very, very wise advice. I think it's a good place to leave the show on. We're going to be back next week talking. We're going to break down all these Jazz games. Hopefully they're coming away 4-0, and we're talking about a 10-game win streak. That'd be amazing against some really good teams. And maybe I'm bought in by then. Maybe I'm like, all right, they're a great team. But until then, we want to know what you think of the show. I want to know what you think of the intro music and the outro music. So give it a listen, rewind it. Let us know what you think. It's been a while since we've changed things up music-wise, so definitely want to hear what you think. Send us an email to dogandeuce@gmail.com. I'm Dog.
And I'm Deuce.
We will see you next week.
Thanks for making us a part of your inauguration day.